Hi and good afternoon. I'm Sue Baxter from Panorama Now Entertainment Magazine and Panorama Now at Noon radio show with WVLP.org and WVLP FM 103.1 FM. And with me is an interesting speaker, Ron Seman, who is a naturalist at the Indiana Dunes, a hiker at the Indiana Dunes, and today he's also going to be a scientist for us. And we asked him today because a lot of you don't know, Tuesday night, the movie in the park on Valparaiso, downtown Valparaiso, was canceled. And nobody knows why. Categories, they're very unhealthy right now. We are on the borderline in Northern Indiana of being very unhealthy. So I don't know which topic you want to cover first, the BP accident or...
I just want to speak for 1 minute on my background. Back in 1990 through 92, I helped fight Mayor Daley's third regional airport, which also Governor Evan Bayh of Indiana wanted. And we helped stop it. One of the big reasons was because of air pollution. And few people realize that air pollution turns into water pollution. The air pollution goes into the water, so now it's not just you're breathing, but you're drinking. And I'm familiar with Standard Oil of Indiana, Amaco, BP. I lived in Whiting for 35 years. My dad worked for 43, and I lived in one of their houses, which was built in 1890, and I was only 1,500 feet, so I'm very familiar with the operation there. And in the news media, they said there was an accident. Some people said because of the conditions of the weather, there was...
They said it was a heavy storm. That's what caused it. That's what I heard, I saw on several different reports.
So I'll just say that my background too is computer science, and I used to design fault-tolerant computer systems where we accounted for like 7 things simultaneously failing. So what does that mean? When you have a factory, the power goes out and now you don't have something monitoring, you have to have backup after backup after backup.
Well, NIPSCO has backups.
And also, NIPSCO has, and then also you have to worry about people. There's going to be human error all the time. We're never not going to have human error. Someone's going to flip the wrong switch to put this fluid, this gas going that way. So we need, we need 2 people. We need checks and balances to make sure that someone doesn't accidentally do stuff. But I'll just say this, if them talking about the effects of sulfur, that it doesn't impact anything, is completely insane.
They did say that.
There's
sulfur won't affect you.
Yeah, there are so many. I could talk about all the psychological effects, all the flashbacks people are having, being essentially locked in your house, just like it was in COVID, being isolated. There's people who work outdoors, their things were canceled, there's all kinds of entertainment things that were canceled. I can't exercise, so not me, but other people can't exercise outdoors, say, all the problems it causes. But let's just talk about one pretty important thing, which is breathing. I'm just going to run through. By the way, I have a website called TheAirStinks.com. TheAirStinks.com. And that's going to be a repository of all things that would be helpful to not only a corporation like BP, US Steel, anyone like that, but also the average person. But let me just talk about the respiratory system. Do you know how many illnesses we have related to that, from asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, chronic bronchitis, cold, flu, COVID, emphysema, lung cancer, cystic fibrosis, pneumonia, pleural effusion, mesometonia. Yeah, that was, So there's so many things, and it's made worse. There's, when I talk about your body mentally and physically getting worse, So people haven't really learned this yet. By cell count, we are 99% not human. We have about 1 trillion human cells. We have about 90 to 99 trillion microbial cells. The microbial cells are what tunes all the other human cells. As an example, your brain does not generate good feeling chemicals when you go out into nature or do other things. It's the microbes that generate it. So if you don't have good, diverse microbes, like say for example in an old growth forest like at Indiana Dunes, if you don't have that good microbial impact, you're going to have a reduced immune system. If you feel depressed, if you feel sick, if you're holding your lungs because you can't breathe, that impacts the life of all the microbes and it starts decreasing. So any kind of stress, just reading that 300 people called Portage Police, and it, they can't respond to other calls. And now there's people who are fearful. Oh my! What if my house is on fire? What if someone's breaking in? I can't even get through. So there are so many.
I have to say that our yard's not that big, but I often go out, I walk out to the back of the yard and walk back up, and it's not a big deal. I'm checking out, our plants and flowers and looking at the weeds. Yeah. And I did that Monday, and I came back, and I was out of breath.
Right.
And then when I got in the car and turned on the air conditioning, I was fine. And that has never happened to me like that.
And as I always tell the hikers, my job is to get you out of your toxic drywall box. In your house, I could rattle off 100 things which are toxic. So now you can't go out. And if you do, you're living in a toxic neighborhood. And so you go into your car, and if there's any sun coming down, if you look in the inside windows of your car and you see all that film, that's also in you. So we live in a toxic drywall box, we have toxic neighborhoods, and we wonder why we're sick. We're wondering why we spend more money on healthcare than anything else, and why the pharmaceutical industry is the industry that really controls everything.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it was the storm that caused the BP accident?
Well, the problem was management. It's always management's fault. If you have lightning coming, for example, if you have high winds and there are units that fail, you failed to plan. Failed to plan is a plan to failure. Mm-hmm. So you have to have redundancy, which means things which are not needed, they're sitting there. And as you monitor things and something starts going a little haywire, things will automatically switch over. I developed real-time control systems. I did work in the steel industry from LaSalle, Inland, U.S. Steel, and Bethlehem Steel. So you have to have all kinds of systems. Like if the computer that's automatically doing stuff, you see it not working right, you have to manually be able to get into it. But also, hey, guess what? The people need to be trained in that. Well, hey, I'm filling in for Bob, so I don't really know all those details. Mm-hmm. Or so many of the events that happen, it's by a human error, or like I have to go to the restroom, I got to step out of the control room. So Mr. Murphy comes along and says, okay, when he's out, that's when the valve, when the pressure is going to go high, and he's not going to be over there to turn it when the warning indicator goes off. You also have people who are so strung out, working all jobs, staying up late, that they're dozing off and don't see stuff. So that's why I say if it's really critical units, you don't even need redundant computers and power supplies. You need redundant humans to be helping each other out.
Yeah. So you're not going to really answer my question.
So the question is, weather never called, as I say in hiking, we've never had bad weather in Indiana. We've had ill-prepared hikers. Same with, we've never had weather that they should always be prepared to deal with the worst case. The weather hasn't changed since they formed it in 1890.
So as far as you know, this has really never happened before, and we've had bad weather before.
Yeah,
if
they
you think about it,
Standard Oil, Indiana started it.
It's a finger pointing situation.
Yeah. So everyone wants to blame, the weather, but it's engineering of the whole process.
Well, Les has been to the NIPSCO plant, and I mean, just for example, he knows. I mean, they have it set up. If something goes down, then something else, takes over. They have plans, like you say, a switch gets pulled when the electricity is used high.
I'll just offer this little suggestion to them. Let's just say because of barometric pressure and wind and clouds, all this, that everything they're putting out of their smokestacks is staying at, let's just say, ground level. Well, you need to be able to control that. We have storage tanks out there which we use for overflow, so there's some pressure here. We could pump some liquid out there so things don't blow up, just like we have flare stacks to handle the pressure. But we could also store some of those gases in containers, in high pressure containers. I mean, but hey, that might raise the price of gas 10 cents. But do we want how many people are in the Chicagoland area? How many people in Northwest Indiana? Hundreds of thousands to millions, and so you have to look at all those factors.
Well, we've had Les has complained about his eyes burning and bothering him, and I had a friend on Facebook say her eyes were really bothering her, and so if you're listening and if you're watching and your eyes are bothering you and you're having difficulty breathing and you feel a heaviness in your chest, that's because of the air quality we have right now.
Yeah, or you could fly to Sweden and send Amaco the bill, and I mean, they're responsible. You could prove all of these chemicals are harmful.
Now,
Science. So we have by law here, we have to have smoke detectors in our house. Some places you have to have CO2. I just got an electrical detector which is constantly analyzing your lines and warning you before some wire fries up in your basement or attic. So we need to look at weather data, like, has this forest area, has it been so dry, it hasn't rained there in 2 years? Do we have camping out there? You have to analyze risks. Are there people lighting fires? Is it well,
yeah.
In Canada they're not celebrating 4th of July. But we have to look at all the factors that could create sparks.
We shouldn't either.
Yeah.
Be honest with you, because the weather has been so dry.
It is dry. People don't realize it is very dry. I mean, people with brown grass know it's dry, but
and
they don't really think about that as a factor.
So for years in California, they did not allow this man who invented a full-size jet to fly and dump stuff to put fires out. They were just using their little dinky helicopters and buckets and things. And so finally they allowed him to do that. Well, I mean, I don't know if Canada uses that technology. Do they have rapid response? How quickly, from when the first fire came, how quickly were people on site? What, did they use all the forces of their reserves and military? I mean, hiking groups who are going to come to hike with me over these next few days, and I send them the links. I said, you don't want to come.
Right.
So it costs economic impact for this area. And people are talking about a residue of stuff on vehicles, houses, siding. There's a massive amount of energy wasted to clean that up. It'll help power washer sales.
Well, the odor is so significant. I mean, you
Yeah,
walk
there's a
outside
lot
and
of
you
people
know there's
were
a
complaining
fire.
about the odor, and it's getting, from Monday to Tuesday, it's gotten worse. From Tuesday to Wednesday, it's gotten worse, when we're being told that it's all taken care of and that everything's okay.
Right.
And who knows what Thursday's going to bring? Is it going to be worse Thursday?
Well, I'm going to claim smoke damage.
And so one of the worst, as bad as the leak was, as bad as the notification process.
Yes.
I'm in several different communities' Facebook pages for those communities, and there were dozens and hundreds of people saying, "What is this? What is this? What is this?" So we've had automated systems for decades where, as an example, BP's having this issue. They blast out these texts. They blast specifically, "Hey, we have a problem, so don't worry. Your backyard pipe, your NIPSCO pipe or NIPSCO tube is not causing this smell. You know, you don't have a gas leak probably, but you know, they have to notify everybody. And so here we got 911 systems essentially crashing or being useless. So we have people with health problems, with dangerous problems. We have accidents that police can't respond to because someone's calling and saying, what's this smell? When Amaco or BP knew right away, you know, they need to notify people. And you need, so we have watchdogs in neighborhoods. I remember in Whiting and elsewhere, there was people we need watchdogs looking at flare stacks. Hey, this one's up 1,400 feet. Tell everybody, hey, something's going on here. I mean, so we just don't, we can't rely on .gov. We can't rely on .corporate, .com. You know, we need to be aware ourselves. Every county needs like Porter emergency alert, Lake emergency alert. One place that everybody knows about that they could read a chronicle.
Why didn't they, instead of using 911, in place of, they could use another, like 811 or 711?
I agree.
Yeah, something to use instead. I mean, it's not a medical emergency.
Right.
Like, okay, you smell something.
Right.
Okay, call an 811 number or 911. Not 911. 911 is for emergency.
Right. Yeah.
And
I hadn't heard of anything outdoors being canceled. Did you hear of a lot of things being canceled?
No, so there are soccer games that went on. There are all kinds of sporting things that went on. Both amateurs, kids, which are very susceptible to things. At one time, the number one reason for kids being absent in the city of Chicago school system was asthma. That was the number one thing. And this just makes it so bad. And some people will say, oh, well, they sent out emergency text. So that is an option that people don't have on. Because I remember one time, one weekend, 3 times at 2 a.m. there was an Amber Alert. And people said, I'm waking up, I can't go back to sleep, it's impacting my health, I'm turning those alerts off. So people don't get alerts. So that's why you have to have many different means of communication. And in economic times like this, I know lots of people, they couldn't pay their cell bill or they couldn't pay their cable TV bill. And so and of course they dropped newspapers a long time ago. So they're going to good electronic sources like yours. But if they don't have the cable, the Wi-Fi, they're not going to be able to have access to information.
Right.
So they need.
Well, the other thing is air is invisible. People don't think about it. It's not on the top of their minds. And like I said, a lot of people don't even know this even happened. And so you know, your government entities haven't even thought about having an air quality alert system.
Right.
It's never been an issue.
And as I say, so it affects your breathing. It affects you mentally. When you have those stresses, it's called the average life of your microbes goes down, which reduces your immune system. So I lead a lot of veterans on hikes. And I said, hey, did you hear that our government, to save money, we're eliminating the Air Force? And they'll say, well, you can't do that. You'll be attacked by air. And I said, okay, well, let's eliminate the Navy. Well, you can't do that. Well, that's what we've done with our immune system. We've let herbicides and pesticides, which were developed essentially in World War II to kill people and make people sick. So when that war ended, they said, what are we going to do? Let's sell them to farmers. So now we strip the soil. There's not a person on earth who's eaten watermelon or tomatoes years ago, and they say, oh, today's tomatoes and watermelons are better. We're stripping all the chemicals, all the good nutrients out of the soil. And and we wonder why we have cancers. We wonder why we have Parkinson's disease. We wonder why we have attention deficit disorder. We wonder why we have all those intestinal issues. I never heard the word gluten in my life before, and
for the last 2 years.
And that really started coming around 1997, because in 1996, a corporation, Monsanto, started selling glyphosate to dry wheat so that your farmers could get $1 today, which is better than $1 in a week because they could sell their wheat. But that is when we had the problems. Just as an example, there's people who go to Paris and they're able to eat croissants and all this stuff they couldn't eat here. So they go back to their doctor and say, doctor, I can eat all that stuff, I'm healed. And what should I do? And the doctor says, why would you come back? Stay there. They banned the use of glyphosate except for like emergency little kind of things. Mm-hmm. So pretty much every one of man's shortcuts, and I won't go through them, but all these shortcuts like the microwave, they all are harmful. They're counterproductive. And
now, do you think the air quality is going to affect the nature system, the environmental system?
Well, yes. So what I would ask is, are they monitoring a certain core set of plants to see how much carbon dioxide they're consuming and how much oxygen they're putting out? No one's doing that. Just like when they do prescribed burns, they don't check the temperatures of the creeks and rivers, because as all the foliage is eliminated, those temperatures of the creeks and rivers can go up 1 degree, which affects spawning. So I've had professional fishermen with me at the Heron Rookery Trail on the Little Calumet River, and they had a little heat gun. It had a laser. They point to the water and they'd say, well, there's not going to be salmon here. There's not going to be trout here because of this. And so when
was it the temperature?
The temperature of the water, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, they haven't done prescribed burns there, but I'm just saying that there are many people, even in California, scientists who say we shouldn't be doing all these prescribed burns. Hey, if you drive from here to Kentucky, how many of those forests along I-65 spontaneously combusted in the last 50 years? So they're talking about eliminating invasive species. So what's invasive? Trees were invasive here. We had all prairie grass, so everything's invasive.
To a certain point.
And so you don't have weeds in your yard. Those dandelions are great. They help cure certain types of cancer. Anyway, so I'm joking that a weed is something that you just don't like.
Depends upon the kind of the weed.
Yeah. Trees do propagate by themselves.
Yes.
They're also helped by the animals.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
And it depends where that animal came from.
One of the great reasons we have the greatest biodiversity density in America is because we have up to 375 species of birds. So they ate somewhere else and they're bringing it here.
At the Indiana Dunes, by the way.
I mean, and people don't realize that a monarch butterfly can travel 100 miles in one day because they surf with the wind. So generally in the later part of September, you could see dozens or hundreds of monarchs on the beach with their wings broken, that they snapped in midair or they were crashed because of the high winds. But monarchs are pollinators and they spread. So let's, if you want to know about air quality and so as I mentioned, so not all of our world's problems are because of glyphosate or other herbicides and pesticides, but it's a huge factor. Since the year 2000, the population of the monarchs have gone down 90% in America, 95% in California, because that's a big agricultural state. We've eliminated milkweed. Then we want to know why the neighbor down on Route 41 has to call 1-800-GOT-BEES to pollinate. I mean, that's a crisis.
Yes.
Well,
yeah. Oh, I know about the milkweed. I do let it grow.
Well, I do know if you lose any one particular insect or animal, you just destroyed the food chain.
Yeah.
All the way up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bees specifically. You lose the bees, you lose everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
but people say, well, it's on the store shelf. Not for much longer.
We were talking the other day that if we do lose the bees, in a couple of years, we won't be able to eat.
Right, right.
We won't have any food.
That's right.
Yeah.
And people don't think about that.
Yeah. It's a crisis. And just one tip, a lot of people know this, but if you're eating honey, make sure you get it from local bees.
Right.
It's far better than if you buy honey from California. Same with maple syrup. Maple syrup is now considered, well, all foods are super. We just don't know what they're super for necessarily, but I know people who actually drink a little bit of maple syrup every morning. And if you research,
local.
As long as it's pure maple syrup and not some of this high fructose corn syrup.
Oh yes, oh my gosh.
You drink that high fructose corn syrup, bye.
So because of the Industrial Revolution, the production of sugar was lowered to be so cheap. So that's why, as I say, in your garage you have a wheelbarrow. In your closet you have a barrel of sugar. On your table you have bowls of it. And we consume so much. It's
so much sugar.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere a long time ago, I was looking this up, how much sugar a person eats per year. And it's astounding.
Yeah. Well, how much sugar is in a can of Coke, too? That's astounding.
Yeah, 140 calories. Yeah. So I listed. I like cherries, and I bought a cherry soda one time, and it was just delicious. Then I looked. It was a designer pop. It cost $3 in this little bottle. It had 66 grams. It was just a massive amount. If you were to watch them making it, okay, I'm gonna keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. You just wouldn't, if you saw saw someone making it at a pop bar, you'd run, you'd flee. Yeah, it's and so my website, which the air stinks, I will have links to the official, so you don't have to turn on news to get the real data, which is often delayed. You can look in real time, know how many there are new fires starting, how many existing fires, where they are. You can look at wind currents. There's great apps that show the flow of air, so we can predict, hey, on this weekend we're not having this graduation outside because this stuff's coming. So my purpose in creating the website is to get people educated. I always tell people, when you use google.com and you do a search, you're going to get the general news media, which is fine, you get a general view, but if you want to know what is at the scientific level, you have to use scholar.google.com, and you'll see all these peer-reviewed papers. Don't just read the ones made in America. Make sure you look at around the world, and they all have translations available. So I consume Japanese, German, French, and I've never had any of that. But you'll be able to see. You'll be able to learn incredible things like type. Is sulfur harmful? Don't believe what ABC7 says.
Well, actually, I think more than one news report was saying the sulfur won't hurt you. I mean, I think I even got a press release saying it won't hurt you. And here we are 4 days later, and we're still struggling with 200, what is that, 200 rating of air quality, which is classified as very unhealthy.
And people don't know that some wood is toxic when you breathe the fumes. There's certain kind of oak where you're not supposed to be breathing it. I don't know what those forests are, the predominant amount, probably isn't that. But
some of it, most of it was accidental because of the drying?
They said accidental, and they said some lightning, But like I said, you have to have the metrics. You got to know that this section of the country hasn't had rain. You got to have people stationed ahead of time, just like in the military.
Yeah.
We're proactive. We're going to have people here. We're not just going to be reactive. And so it's all management issues.
Every living thing breathes air, no matter how big and no matter how small. It breathes air. And if it can't breathe, it'll lose it. There's nothing you can do about it.
So I mentioned how polluted air pollutes water, which also then pollutes our ground. People ask me all the time, what's the greatest thing you learned in the last 5 years? And it's tree communication, plant communication. They all communicate through this fungal network underground. How sophisticated it is? Within 1 footstep, you could have 300 miles of network. Well, when you go poisoning water, when stuff is going on the ground, that's killing the mushrooms. It could reduce the mushroom spore output. So now we have, the mushroom is the fruit of fungi. So like we have an apple spreading trees, strawberries, when you have all these seeded things, so are the spores spreading mushrooms, which spread fungi, which makes everything communicate. So we are doing massive damage.
You need to watch the movie Avatar. I mean, all plants communicate in that movie.
Yeah. And they have the tree of life too.
And people can, I know it's kind of far-fetched, but people there were able to communicate the trees.
Yeah, last year it was determined that there's a vocabulary of roughly 50 words. Now, I put my ear to the ground, never heard it. Of course, it's not audible. It is electrochemical.
Right.
And people say, well, how could that be? Well, Morse code, our country lived on Morse code. And so dot, dash, voltage, pause, chemical, pause, it's, and so, if you go on the scientific channel YouTube and do a search tree communication, it's fascinating, and you'll learn about National Geographic talking about the acacia trees in Africa that all banded together, increased their tannin, and killed animals that were scraping their bark off. So,
oh wow!
And also, if you're into Hollywood, look at the Wizard of Oz when they go to try to pull the apple.
Oh, I mean that's kind of again.
Yeah.
That is not too far fetched.
They're going to
maybe
react.
Someday we'll have a machine that someone invents that can actually measure this communication process.
Well, there is. I mean, the fact that they were able to determine. The communication, they're recognizing, okay, pulse, that does something. There was a famous woman who was in Europe, and she said, how could this little tiny tree grow when we have a forest with a super dense canopy? How could it go? Well, that little tree is communicating to the mother tree, to the father tree, saying, hey, you're blocking my light, give me nutrients. So the fungi says, yeah, we're going to pass it, but we're like this Chicago Skyway. We're charging you a toll. And so then that fungal network increases. So here's a pop quiz for you. What's the largest living thing on Earth? It's not a whale. It's not a 375-foot redwood. It's not the General Sherman sequoia tree. It is a fungal network in the state of Oregon, which is just huge. And they know it's one because when they dig up that soil, they check the DNA, and it's the same everywhere.
Wow.
So that's the largest living.
Wow.
So if you're ever on Jeopardy.
Well, speaking of being outdoors, the Indiana Dunes, I know you're familiar with this, started the 1966 project this year. And in the June panorama, we listed the hikes.
I saw this.
And then we did it again in July. It's going to come out in July again.
Yeah, one of my friends, Wayne, is a volunteer, and he's going on every one of those hikes as what they call the caboose. So he's at the back of the line and making sure everyone's doing good. So the Indiana Dunes the national park has roughly 50 plus miles of trails. The state park has 16 plus. And you want to experience all the ecosystems. I know some hikers, they just repeat the same, I'm going to Carlsbad, I'm going to Carlsbad, I'm going to the Pinhook Bog Upland Trail. And they just repetitively do that. You want diversity, you want to go to many. So this is so wise of the national park.
Well, there's 19 hikes.
Yeah.
And it's
every Saturday.
Total 66 miles.
Yeah. Because there's a little overlap here and there. And
if you miss one, you can go to the website. Actually, we have the website on our website. that describes each trail, it tells you how long it is, tells you where it's at, tells you all the information you need.
Yeah. I've been, over my life, I do photography and videography, and right now I have about 242,000 photos and over 8,000 short videos about the dunes. So
how many videos?
Over 8,000, and I could not upload them. I could not upload them fast enough because my Comcast was limited to 12 megabits per second. So now I got fiber, which is 1,000. So you're gonna see me cranking it out. And but what I'm saying is, I have done a lot of driving tours. I've taken people on tours who can't hike, and I can take you through roads and things which shows you these ecosystems. There's a lot of favorite ones in Beverly Shores and elsewhere. So before COVID started, there was a retirement home in Chesterton, and I proposed to them, hey, get your people in a 14-passenger van and let's go on a hike by driving. And so they were very interested, and then COVID came, of course, and they couldn't, but I want to start that up. But so those hikes, it's great to experience all the trails. And what I say is have a list. So you don't even have to join all these rangers, but have a list of the trails, and then you just check them off.
Right.
Don't go to the same one until you've been, if you've gone to West Beach, just don't do Diana the Dunes.
And you can also contact Ron.
Yeah, on my website, you'll see
go
an
on one of
email
his
address.
Yeah. Go ahead, what's your website?
Yeah, so IndianaDunesHiking.com, and you'll see that you could email me at Ron, RONSEMAN, event @gmail, and you could request one. And you could also text at 219-370-9109. And so most of my hikes after the AARP article came out, it has a readership of 37,900,000 people. So after that came out, I got people from all over America coming to see Indiana Dunes National Park. There was a lady.
Are you still doing the hike at Sunset Hill?
No, I'm not doing the ones at Sunset Hills because I'm focusing on the healthier Indiana Dunes. Sunset Hills is great, don't get me wrong, but the Indiana Dunes is a step above everything and has the greatest biodiversity density in America. And I call it the Museum of Nature and Industry. So I'm thankful for this industry. If we didn't have this industry, we would not have the homes, vehicles, food, educated. We need jobs, and this area has a greater balance.
Well, it was explained to me that actually the reason why the biodiversity actually is there is because of the steel mill on one side and the steel mill on the other side. So the birds that are flying across don't have any place to go. They don't have a place to stop, except at the Indiana Dunes. So they have to come here anyway.
That certainly is one factor, and if you learn about glaciers, the Wisconsin Glacier Complex, there was a couple movements, but picture a glacier a mile high and 50 miles wide. So Indiana got the good stuff. Chicago over there didn't get it. Michigan didn't get it. The dunes at Michigan are different geologically than the dunes here. Anyway,
so we got the Wisconsin Glacier.
Yeah, but I mean, it just dumped a lot of good stuff. And Henry Chandler Coles in 1896 was coming on an electric train. It wasn't called the South Shore, and he saw all these ecosystems. He started writing papers, read all over the world, and we're the birthplace of ecology. It started here. Also, we're the birthplace of aviation. Octave Chanute, he designed the glider, and the Wright brothers asked to use it.
That's C-O-W-L-E-S, Coles. C-O-W-L-E-S.
Yes, C-O-W-L, yeah, not the other one.
Well, we actually didn't cover a lot of the topics, but it was very interesting to have you on, Ron, and the hiking professional hiker and scientist and naturalist. And if you have any questions, you can reach him on his website and Facebook. You can actually also reach us if you have any questions or any comments.
And I thank you for what you do. When I discovered that Mount Tidal was the tallest actual dune by 5 different verification methods, it was you who published it immediately. You were cited. I'll say some major newspaper in Northwest Indiana just couldn't comprehend what I was trying to tell them. So I gave up.
Well, I mean, you know, the environment, the ecology is a big issue for Panorama.
And so anything in particular, anything to do with air quality, if you go to The Air Stinks, communicate with me, tell me your stories, because I'll be relaying that on to government officials.
No, well, and actually watch that website. I went to IDEM to find out the air quality, but be conscious of this air quality we have right now, because we don't really know. No one knows when this is going to end and how long it's going to last, and you need to be aware of what's going on.
You don't want
really
to. You don't want to go running 5K races and marathons and all that.
Yeah, well, if it keeps up the way it is right now, it's been getting worse every day. So thank you, Ron.
All right.
Thank you.
I've got a question for him. Since
real quick.
People come and go on your hikes through the national park. Now, how do they pay to use?
So I have no fees at all. Everything I do is for free. If
but to use the national park,
you have to have a pass.
You could park at the visitor center. So the visitor center and the Paul H. Douglas Center is free. Sometimes people meet me and I drive them, and they're just my guests, so they don't have to pay if they're
we
like
went
low
through
income.
this pass thing.
Well, another just a little bit of tidbit we were talking about over the weekend. You talked about the glaciers. A lot of people don't know that Lake Michigan is 900 feet deep.
Yeah.
It's one of the deepest inland lakes in the U.S. and it might be one of the deepest inland lakes in the whole world.
So if I ask you how many Great Lakes, you'll say 5. There's some scientists that say 4 because Huron and Lake Michigan are identical, and that there's a thing connecting. So anyway, there's debate, but
there's a lot of interesting facts about Lake Michigan itself.
One of my favorite sayings is, "Foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." And so many people often will just say, "Oh, well, that's what I learned in school. That's what this entity said. That's what," and they just don't change. But
you have to get your information from more than one source, and that's what we do in Panorama. We
become a citizen scientist.
Yes.
Tune into your radio.
Well, I have a lot of things people have never heard before, so. And watch the show every Friday at noon, and we'll talk more. We'll have more for the other show going on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.